Welcome to Self, a podcast on self education through self expression, discovery, and exploration. I'm your host, Courtney Brain, and I want to excitedly announce that I went on ahead and created a YouTube channel for yoga classes, and it's called Self Yoga. So, Self in itself is just going to be a brand. I don't know how I'm going to come up with like the brand values and all of that, but I think that it's time for me to do something with that. Self itself is a word that means something to me, and it means enough for me to have went from, oh, I just want to have like this online accountability journal type thing where I just check in with myself every week and do it consistently, to now like I can't get it off my mind when I'm talking about like self yoga, self podcast, self clothing, and some of the concepts of it as well. If ever I make a Facebook status or Instagram post, a lot of the content comes from what I've explored here in this space of just podcasting. Like as I talk out loud to myself, basically, some of the inspiration that comes from that has been very useful, even in just exchanging dialogue with people. And even when people see that I write something, they're like, yeah, that right there, that's right. So, yeah, check that out. It's just Self Yoga on YouTube. It's free classes. They're from 15 to 30 minutes, and you'll notice that the quality of everything gets better as you get into the later uploads. So, I'm working on that for myself, and I'm going to use that as a way to support myself when I move out to Portland as well, because I'll be waiting at least until probably January, maybe, before any of the funding projects that I have pending are started, if they're approved in relation to my podcast production in the public health space and something positive for positive people. So, all right. Potential. Potential, by definition, I didn't look it up before I started. I just hit record and hopped on this. But you check out the word potential for its definition so that you have your own working definition or the working definition of what it means. For me, I look at potential as possibility. This is what's possible. I haven't always looked at it like that. I've always been the kind of person who is seen by, I'm not seen, sorry. I see people. I think I've mentioned this on the previous episode about how people serve as mirrors for one another. And the more clear your mirror is able to reflect what's around you, the more work you've done on yourself to become a healthy person. That means being willing to look at any stains on your mirror and then go and identify what they are and find the proper cleaning materials in order to do that, and then be willing to clean it so that you have a clear picture of, when you check in with yourself, who you are, and when others are in your presence, you're reflecting to them their purest form of themselves. So that's, to me, is what that mirror concept is, right? Now, when we look at that concept and we apply potential to it, let's take a relationship, for instance, and I'll use myself as an example. For the last year and a half-ish, I've been seeing someone, because it's gone from just casually dating to in a relationship to this ain't working out to let's just be friends to let's have sex to having whatever this moment now is of space, right? So as someone who's non-monogamous, as someone who really values their relationships with people, I know for myself that I am invested. At 32 years old, I am invested in any relationship that I decide to put energy into. I'm not entertaining people for a hookup, just one time interaction, or friendships that are just like acquaintanceships, really. Anyone that I choose to invest in, I'm invested in now. And with my most recent relationship, what I found is that I said this to her like on the first day that we met, and she opened her mouth to speak, uh, and the quality of the conversation and how I was challenged in what some of the things were that I was saying, because a lot of people don't challenge me. Like, I say things, and I think that a lot of people have kind of like this starstruckness to them because I'm a straight black dude who can speak to like LGBT allyship, or I can speak to sex education. And when I open my mouth, like I see it in a lot of old white people's faces, they don't expect me to be as articulate as I am, or to be able to type and spell and write and use the right there or to when I'm sending any sort of text correspondence. So that initial interaction with my previous partner, uh, that set the tone for the relationship. I was like, damn, okay. And we've acknowledged that we were two emotionally unavailable people at the time. It was pandemic beginning, and in this relationship, that was what it was to me. I was with someone who I didn't have to change who I was to be around. I really like people who just let me be who I am. I like people who accept me. When you accept me, that means you unconditionally love me. If you say you unconditionally love me and you don't accept me, then you don't really unconditionally love me. That is a very, very important thing to remember as well. Like, flaws and all, to accept someone is to really genuinely love them, right? And to love someone doesn't necessarily mean you accept them. So if you don't accept them for who they are, can you genuinely say you love them? That's a topic for another conversation. I have consistently fallen in love with potential, and what that potential is essentially my standards. And I condition myself to, when I have these standards for someone, hold them to it. And I've historically not let them know what these standards are. And I've only just realized that. But the thing about it is that mirror concept, when your mirror is clear and other people make their way into your space and they're around you, two things are going to happen, or one of two things. If your mirror is as clear as it is, as you think it is, they see all of themselves, and as a mirror, whatever their smudges are, their flaws, all of that. And they have to go through the work of clearing that up, typically because they want to show you who you are as well. But the thing about it is, you're showing people exactly who they are when you do the work. Let's take the mirrors aside in case I'm confusing anyone who might be listening to this. When a person knows who they are, they know what they're headed towards, and they are in the presence of someone who perhaps is escaping or avoiding seeing who they really are, one of two things is going to happen. One of three things. Let's say one of three things. That person who knows who they are is going to uh, sort of level down if the other person has more weight and more pull and more intensity to themselves. The energy fields will begin to match one another. So if you consider yourself a high value person and you see potential in a low value person, but that person is not ready to see and work on all of themselves, they might bring you down because you really want the interactions, you want the relationship to work, you want that potential there. You see not who that person is in the moment. That's not what potential is. The potential that you're pursuing is who you see yourself as a result of that person matching their potential that you have set for them. I'm sorry. So when you give the person these standards and they rise to those standards, it's not the potential you see in them, it's the potential that you see in yourself as the person who's with that person. And perhaps it's because your own internal standards are pretty low. And I'm saying that for the first time, and that really resonates for me. Like, maybe I have such low standards for myself that I have to project high standards onto the world around me in order to call in a partners who have that, who meet those standards, so that I have to raise the bar for myself. And or I can even, without having to raise the bar for myself, say, damn, that's my partner right there. Like, that's the caliber, the quality, the standard of what I choose to allow to myself to share space with. Therefore, by association, that's where I'm at. So looking at potential just might be a fucking cop out from having to do the work. It could be a cop out from having to do the work. So that was one thing that could happen. Another thing that can happen is you might elevate that other person. So we said the first one was that your energy fields might be, you begin to sync up energy fields basically. So that person may pull you down. You might bring that person up. And this is where healthy communication comes in. Healthily communicate, like, hey, I fell in love with this person that I haven't seen in a while. Where are they? Where's this person at? The person who challenges me, challenges themselves, who supports me, is prioritizing their own needs, those kinds of things. Whatever it is that you originally saw in a person, how great of a friend they were, a relative, a partner, a parent, how well they treat their parents, all of these things are aspects of people's identities that we can support, we can love, and we can validate. And in seeing the potential in someone, you're probably validating an aspect of their identity that you yourself admire and would like to be able to build on for yourself. But the problem is, when you see potential, you're expecting someone else to do your work. And I recognize that. I recognize that in my last relationship, my hard standards, anytime I would get upset, anytime I would get jealous, anytime I'd get intensely emotional, what that was because of an unmet expectation, because I claimed unconditional love, but the acceptance was conditional. I only accept behaviors that I support. As long as you're headed on the trajectory based on my standards and my experience of being the person that I saw my potential peak in, if I was with that person, then I love you. Then I accept you. That hasn't been the case. That just hasn't been the case. And as a result, we've both become people that we didn't like. And we've acknowledged that some behaviors in our relationship have done that. And I've been doing way too much work on myself to revert back to who I was however many years ago, before having been in therapy, before having grown to the point of recognizing what my core values are, what my relationship values are. And while granted, I don't know what I want long term in a relationship, I'm able to communicate that. And I know that I unconsciously have my standards, because these standards are, they're ridiculously high. It's point blank period. If I'm going to be in a relationship with you and call you my significant other, then the standards are high. And you might not even know what they are. I might not even know what they are. But I recognize that I cannot keep giving these standards to other people that I'm not holding myself to. That's what my problem has been in my past relationships. Potential. It's like, man, we could be, this could possibly. That's where the emphasis is. But I will do the work on myself for what it is. And I see what people mean now. How you gonna ask something of somebody that you're not willing to do yourself? How you gonna try to be with somebody? You want a partner that's all these things, but are you those things? And the question isn't, you need to accomplish or achieve things that validate your capability of being the kind of person you need to be in order to tap into those things. I believe that that statement of that statement is just to challenge you in, are you holding your partners to a much higher standard than you are yourself? That's the root of what's being asked in that sentence. Are you holding yourself to the same standards that you are your significant others and partners? No. And I can say that. I look back on my behaviors in my relationship with other people, with family, friends, with other partners, and no, I can honestly say no. I have not been holding myself accountable to the same standard that I've projected onto significant others. I haven't. And that's where this potential stuff comes in. I mentioned the third thing that would happen. The first one was, energies are going to sync up, whether it be you elevate the other person or the other person brings you down to their level. But what if both people revert as a result, and it becomes what we label as toxic, where that intensity, that chemistry becomes intoxicating, the highs and the lows, one person's desire for closeness and another person's desire for distance, avoidance, anxious attachment styles, right? You get into the cycle of creating that push pull and the intensity of the emotion that is so intense. People only know how to express it in a way that they know how to express it. And oftentimes that looks like sex, and that looks like bomb sex. And it feels amazing, and it looks amazing, and it's so special. You start having orgasms together, and like soul ties build, and you become so connected with that person that your lives sort of sync up. The things that you get upset about with another person, you're upset because they're doing the same thing that you're doing, and vice versa. Or the thing that you wish you weren't doing, or the thing that you dislike about yourself is being projected onto the other person. So those are the three things that I believe can happen. But what about the fourth, right? Where both people elevate one another, where you're challenging one another and you holding yourself accountable, and the other person is holding you accountable, and you unconditionally accept one another as you are, where you can say, hey, there's a little inconsistency in what you said and what you're doing here. I just wanted to check in, make sure, has anything changed? What's the exception here? I've not been able to do that without like being activated in my relationship. And the feeling of activation is basically being triggered, that fight or flight in your body. Like, this person is exposing me in their behavior, exposing me in that I'm not meeting my own potential. I'm seeing what could be with somebody else because I'm attached to who I could be in the event that they match my potential. Because I also noticed this about myself. I know that I don't initiate interactions with high value women. And it's been brought up to me that I like fixing people. I have a habit of being in relationships with people who are emotionally unavailable. To me, that emotional availability is safe. It's familiar. The familiarity of an emotionally unavailable person is that their behaviors are predictable, in that they're unpredictable. Best case scenario usually never happens. And if it does, it is so intense, it's intoxicating. It's amazing. But I don't have high standards for people who are emotionally unavailable. Therefore, if I'm dating them and the potential at its peak is that, I get to be exactly who I am. I get to give, be loving. And this person's so unavailable that they're not going to hold me to the standard of remaining consistent in that. So, bam, I'm good. And how wild is that of a thing to acknowledge and say about myself, right? But what about someone who is emotionally available? Am I scared that I'm going to mess that up? Am I scared that my standards, my identity as someone who is with someone who's emotionally available, who meets my standards, whose potential brings out who I think I want to be, I might be intimidated by that. Because there are women around me who I could be like, hey, I would like to date you. But I would also have to admit to them that, even with my insecurities, my only insecurities revolve around finances. And I'm actively working on that for myself. And I know, like, I ain't got no car, I ain't got no job, I ain't got no income. After next week, I won't have an income. Uh, I got herpes. I'm not monogamous. I don't know what I want long term. These are all things that I recognize about myself, but the only insecurity that I have is really around the financial situation that I'm in. And I don't pursue partners who alleviate that situation, but I have recognized that partners that I have chosen, there's what did I say? I used this statement of like being non-monogamous for resources. Or out of like convenience or something like that. And I recognize people genuinely just want to help, but when I looked at a lot of the relationships around me, like people would offer to take me to the grocery store or buy me groceries or take me somewhere, so that met the transportation need. I would not, money wise, I don't like people giving me things or paying for things when I'm in this place. Like if I have it, I don't care. Yeah, oh, you got this round, I get the next round. But being insecure around my finances, if someone offers to pay for something for me, I recognize this feeling in my body of, man, get out of here. My buddy Will came into town. He's successful. He's got a really great job and like owns a house and just bought a car, like all these things. And we were at the bar down the street from me, and I was ready to pay. I was like, I could pay. And he was like, oh, I got it here. Just leave a tip. And even though I know that this is our dynamic, like sometimes he pays, sometimes I pay, it still felt weird to me. And this is a friend. So a friend brought up this financial insecurity, just being nice. And what did that really challenge in me? That challenge that I'm not working on, or that I haven't met my standards of being financially secure. So that was like a little sidetrack thing that I wanted to say. But just with the issues that I have around my insecurities and being open about my HSV status, having herpes, that being out into the world, fairly often I do get opportunities to have physical connections with women who simply I recognize it's just because we both got herpes. And maybe that's not always the case, but I do recognize, and I often wonder, like, would it be the case if I had it and you didn't, or vice versa, or if neither of us had it? Would we be in the situation that we're in, to where we would be able to cross paths? I don't know. But again, going back to the convenience and the resources, like I've challenged myself in, is this why I'm not monogamous? And I've come back to the answer being no, just because of like my visceral responses to that in my body are like, nah, I don't want that. Like I have a partner who lives probably a 15 to 20 minute drive away. I live a 5 minute walk from the metro station. I cut her drive time down to 5 minutes. Like that is the kind of person I am. She'd offered to come get me, but I'm like, that's easily now 40 minutes out of your way. Like that's 40 minutes of driving versus 10 minutes of driving. I can accommodate. We can compromise in that sense, right? But taking it back to the potential thing, when we look at a person for not who they are, we don't accept them. And acceptance is really the pathway to unconditional love, I'm learning. And when you can do that, you can really love somebody. Otherwise, it's love under conditions and with aspects of control sprinkled in there. I like myself most when you're who I want you to be. That's what pursuing potential is. And that's why I can say that none of my relationships have worked out, is because two people who see potential, not in the other person, but in the other person's compliance to being the who to being someone that validates, or like it's almost like you're outsourcing your healing through the potential of another person because of who you appear to be based on the work that they have to do in order to meet those ridiculously high standards you have for them. That's my that's it. That's what it is. Potential is the outsourcing of inner healing within a partner that validates the illusion of who you see yourself as without you having to do the work. So with that said, what do? I don't know that my relationship is going to recover from this. Like I said, we're in space right now, and I said things. I became a person that I didn't like. I was verbally, emotionally speaking what my truth was, and I did that shit with like surgically, with precision. I think a lot of people have like narcissistic traits. I think that a lot of people have toxic traits. And I've done a really good job of like hindering that, because I think I mentioned my mom always told me I was arrogant, or she called me a narcissist. That's what she would say. She's like, "You a narcissist? You're a narcissist." My mom knows me better than anybody else. My mom also doesn't know what the word narcissist means. So what she meant when she said that was actually arrogant, in that I am so sure of myself, even in this like podcast of talking to my uncertainty. I am so certain that these are my uncertainties. So, yeah, like I was saying, man, I recognize I was verbally abusive, and I recognize the emotional manipulation and back and forth, and just the highs and the lows that I would create in this relationship. And I acknowledge that, and I said things that were, while true, super duper hurtful. But also, I recognize that these were projections. These were projections, and me grieving and me being hurt. The pain doesn't come in breakups, to me, in my experience. The pain has never come from like someone actually hurting me. The pain has come from the validation that I receive from the other person that I'm not who I need to be. What I'm saying is, you've exposed me as someone that I don't see myself as. And that's what these, like, what fights are, when you fight with with your significant other versus being able to healthily communicate with them and have discussion and just say, "Hey, we're in a good place during these times. We're in bad places during these times. What's up?" That's all it takes, is just ask them, "Hey, what's up? What's up with this? It's an inconsistency. Let's highlight and focus on and hone in on this inconsistency so that we can work to work separately within ourselves and come together and make this relationship what it can be." And that's the healthy way of like matching energy and expanding on it. But when two people can honestly say that they've become a person they don't recognize, I don't think that's who we really are. That's just recognition of, hey, I'm reverting. I'm not growing as a result of this relationship, and I recognize it. I'm recognizing it early, and we need to do something about this. Something has to change, and if nothing changes, nothing changes. Therefore, it becomes toxic. That's where that goes. So, I am, for myself, going to become secure in my finances. That's step one for me. Um, and then just acknowledge, well, step one should be acknowledging where I'm at. I acknowledge that I pursue potential in partners because it's outsourcing the work that I need to be doing for myself. And anytime that they don't meet that standard, it's like a punch in my gut of, hey, you're not meeting that standard for yourself. How you gonna ask somebody else to meet that standard? So that's what dating for potential looks like, and that's what pursuing potential looks like in anything. If you look at partners, if you look at relationships around you, you look at your career, passions, that's it. So let's do this. Let's identify our own potential within ourselves and identify what we can do on a regular basis in order to validate our identities in being that person today. Not who we could be, but who we are now. So when we get in relationships with partners and they see our quote potential, is it potential or is it who we are? Do they want to be around us for who we are or who they see themselves as, when they're in that relationship or in your presence? Let's work on us. Thank you for listening. If you like this, please comment, rate, review, whatever it is that you can do. Take a yoga class. It's on the selfpodcast.com website. There's like 11 on there at this point, and I'm going to upload as many of these as I can prior to moving out to Portland, because that's in 2 weeks. Thank you.